Chapter 5. The Color Storm. The corridor was stopped by a heavy metal door. As the small party approached, it swung inward in two halves, and a figure clad in a white surgeon's smock emerged. He was a white man, tall, with highly intelligent face, but eyes strangely dull and lifeless, like those of the coolie guards. His gaze rested on KU SUI, and the Eurasian asked him, "Is it ready?" "Yes, Lord," tonelessly. "Through here, then, my friends." The door opened and closed behind them as they stepped inside. "This is my main laboratory, and there, friend Carse, is the object which is to concern us." With one glance, the adventurer took in the laboratory. It was a great room, a perfect circle in shape, with doors opening into the four wings of the building. The walls were lined with strange, complicated machines, whose purpose he could not even guess at. In one place there was a table strewn with tangled shapes of wire, rows of odd bulging tubes and other apparatus, and conspicuous by one door was an ordinary operating table with light dome overhead. A tall, wide screen placed a few feet out from the wall hid something bulky from view. Carse noted all these things. Then his gaze went back to the object in the middle of the floor which KU SUI had indicated. It was, primarily, a chair, within a suspended framework of steely bars, themselves the foundation for a network of fine-drawn colored wires. Shimmering like the gossamer threads of a spider's spinning, they wove upward, around and over the chair, so that he who sat there would be completely surrounded by the gleaming mesh. Within the whole hung a plain square box-like device, attached to the chair, and so placed that it would be directly in front of the eyes of anyone sitting there. Ropes were reeved through pulleys in the ceiling for raising the wire ball device to permit entrance, and, standing ready around it, were four men in surgeons' smocks, white men with intelligent faces and dull, lifeless eyes. The hawk knew the answer to the question he curtly asked. "Its purpose, Dr. KU?" "That," came the suave reply, "it will be your pleasure to discover for yourself. I can promise you some novel sensations. Nothing harmful, though, however much they may tire you. Now!" He gave a sign. One of his assistants touched a switch. The wire ball rose, leaving the central seat free for entrance. "All is ready. May I ask you to enter?" HAWK CARSE faced his old foe. There was stillness in the laboratory then as his bleak gray eyes met and held for long seconds KU SUI's enigmatic green-black ones. "If I don't?" For answer, the Eurasian gestured apologetically to his guards. "I see," Carse whispered. There was nothing to be done. 3 coolies, each with ray guns at the ready, 4 white assistants. No hope, no chance for anything. He looked at the Negro. "Don't move, Friday," he warned him. "They'll only shoot. It can do no good. 8 to 2 are big odds when the 2 are unarmed." He turned and faced the Eurasian, holding him with his eyes. "KU SUI," he said, clipping the words, "you have said that this would not permanently harm me, and although I know you for the most deadly, vicious egomaniac in the solar system, I am believing you. I do not know you for a liar. I will enter." The faint smile on the Oriental's face did not alter one bit at this. Carse stepped to the metal seat and sat down. The web of shimmering wires descended, cupping him completely. Through them he saw KU SUI go to a switchboard adjoining and study the indicators, finally placing one hand on a black-knobbed switch, and with the other drawing from some recess a little cone, trailing a wire like a microphone. A breathless silence hung over the laboratory. The white-clad figures stood like statues, dumb, unfeeling, emotionless. The watching Negro trembled, his mouth half open, his brow already bedewed with perspiration, but the only sign of strain or tension that showed in the slender, flaxen-haired man sitting in the wire ball in the center of the laboratory came when he licked his dry lips. Then Dr. KU SUI pulled the switch down, and there surged out a low-throated murmur of power. And immediately the ball of wire came to life. The fine, crisscrossing wires disappeared, and in their stead was color, every color in the spectrum, like waves rhythmically rising and falling. The tinted brilliances dissolved back and forth through each other, and the reflected light, caraming off the surfaces of the instruments and tables and walls, so filled the laboratory that the group of men surrounding the fireball were like resplendent figures out of another universe. KU SUI pressed a button, and the side of the box-like device nearest HAWK CARSE's eyes assumed transparency and started to glow. Beautiful colors began to float over its face. Colors never still, but constantly weaving and clouding into an infinity of combinations and designs. Eyes staring wide, as if unable to close them to the brilliant kaleidoscopic procession, the adventurer looked on. Friday knew that his master at that moment was impotent to move, even to shut his eyes, and, with a wild notion that he was being electrocuted, he made a rash rush to destroy the device and free him. He learned discretion when 2 ray streaks pronged before him and forced him back, and thereafter he was given the undivided attention of 2 guards. From the outside, through the ball of color, Carse was a ghost-like figure. Rigid and quivering, he sat in the chair and watched the color maelstrom. His face was contorted, his cheek muscles stood out welt-like in his sweat-glistening skin. His eyes, which he could not close, throbbed with agony. But yet he was conscious, yet he still could will. He defended his secret as best he could. Obviously, this machine was being used to force from his mind the knowledge of Elliot Lithgow's whereabouts, and therefore he attempted to seal his mind. He fastened it on something definite, on Iapetus, satellite of Saturn, and his ranch there, and barred every other thought from his head. Mechanically, he repeated to himself, Iapetus, Iapetus, my ranch on Iapetus, 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 hundreds of times, hours, days. The blinding waves of color rioted about him, submerged him, fatigued him. He had a strong impulse to sleep, but he resisted it. Days seemed to pass, years, eons. All this continued without change, to the end of the world. Dimly, he knew that the color storm was working on him, sensed danger when a great drowsiness stole over him. But he fought it off, his brain beating out hundreds of times more. Iapetus, Iapetus, I have a ranch there, Iapetus, Iapetus. Then came excruciating pain. An electric shock suddenly speared him. His nerves seemed to curl up, and for a second his mind was thoroughly disorganized before it again took up the drone about Iapetus. Recovery, dullness, a kind of peace, and again the shock leaped through him. It was followed by a question from afar off. Where is Elliot Lithgow? Somehow that question meant a great deal and should not be answered. Again the stab of agony, again the voice. Where is Elliot Lithgow? Again the shock, and again the voice, alternating over and over. He could brace himself against the shock, but the voice could in no way be avoided. It was everywhere about him, over, around, under him. He began to see it. Desperately he forced his brain on the path it must not leave. He had forgotten years ago why, but knew there must be some good reason. Iapetus, Iapetus, I have a ranch there. Iapetus, Iapetus, where is Elliot Lithgow? Iapetus, Iapetus, I have a ranch there. Where is Elliot Lithgow? I have a ranch there, Iapetus, a ranch. Where is Elliot Lithgow? Where is Elliot Lithgow? Where is Elliot Lithgow? After 2 hours and 10 minutes, the hawk crumpled. He was quite delirious at the time. The combined effect of the pain, the physical and nervous exhaustion of the shocks and light, the endlessly repeated question, his own close concentration on his Iapetus ranch, these were too much for any human body to stand against. He lost his grip on his mind, lost the fine control that had never been lost before, the control about which he was so vain. And the lump of flesh that was HAWK CARSE gave the information that was tearing wildly at its prison. A stammering voice came from the heart of the color sphere. Porto Porno, Satellite 3, Porto Porno, Satellite 3, Porto Porno, Sat. Dr. KU SUI interrupted him, leaned forward. The house is number 574, 574, 574. Ah, breathed the Eurasian. Porto Porno, so near. KU SUI returned the switch and pressed one of the buttons. The pool of colors faded. The laboratory returned to comparative dimness. The machine in its center seemed but a great web of wire. Slumped in the seat within it was a slender figure, his flaxen head bowed over on his chest, his eyes closed, and sweat still trickling down his unconscious brow. And lying on the floor was another unconscious figure. Friday had fainted.